Well, it's International Fraud Week, and with the festive season here, it's basically a party for those who thrive on ripping people off. But to make us aware of trends to look out for in order to avoid falling victim, we're now joined by Debtsource CEO Frank Knight this morning. Frank, thank you so much for your time and good morning.
Thank you and good morning, Tamela.
Good morning. I worry that oftentimes when the festive season is approaching, instead of being cheerful, you also have to be very careful, right? And you are saying it's because a lot of trends, fraud trends at this time do mushroom. At this point, what should we be careful of?
Well, I think that it turns out that fraudsters also like buying Christmas presents.
Yeah.
So this is the time, especially in a commercial fraud environment, in the business-to-business environment, we see an enormous increase in fraud around this time period. And part of the reason for it is because companies are a lot more busy and therefore their internal controls are not what it is always supposed to be. And I do think that fraudsters actually make full use of that. In a consumer environment, we definitely see increases in trends in fraud during the festive season as well. Typically all kinds of fraud schemes that come out of the process. Consumers having their identity stolen, that is a really big focus at this time of the year especially. And all of a sudden when consumers then go and try to make purchases at the end of this, during the festive season, they find that they've got a credit record problem, etc. Because their identity has been stolen. So it is a big focus at this time of the year.
How important then is cybersecurity at this time, even for businesses, as you mentioned, not just for consumers, because these systems may crack during this time. So how important is it to prioritize cybersecurity?
So cybersecurity really is the number one risk that most businesses face these days, and especially smaller businesses are more vulnerable because they don't always have the internal controls that bigger businesses do have. From a personal perspective, I mean, we even give our kids, that are 12-year-old cell phones that may be unprotected. And so it's really important that when we have these devices, when we look at these devices, it's really critical that we install good virus protection on them, malware protection on them. And then also, I think like the biggest thing that people can do, Tamela, is a fraud mindset.
Yeah.
If you're aware of the fact that fraud may potentially happen, if you think about how fraud could potentially happen, even as a consumer, a lot of prevention will already take place.
And to that point, Frank, help us then to think like a fraudster would, so we can understand the psychology of a fraudster or a scammer, for instance. What exactly are they looking for? What do they want from me, possibly? And how then can I detect that this could potentially be fraud?
Well, there are two things that fraudsters really want from you, Tamela. The first thing, access to your bank account. And there are lots of ways to get that, phishing schemes, etc., etc. The other way that fraudsters operate is they really want access to your identity. Because if you've got a good credit record, if you've got a good, clean identity, then they can use that identity to either apply for credit cards or apply for credit facilities, buy furniture, in some cases even buy properties using your identity. And many consumers won't even know that it's actually happened. And so those are the two things that you really need to watch for. How safe and secure is access to your bank account.
Right.
Don't click on phishing links. Secure passwords, etc. And then in a personal environment, also then make sure that your information is secure. There are also really great tools out there. The credit bureaus, for instance, have got an amazing system that monitors your credit profile and actually alerts you to any changes in your credit profile. So even if someone just makes an inquiry on your credit profile somewhere along the line, then you will be alerted to that by the credit bureau. So those solutions are out there, and definitely now is the time that consumers should invest in.
Absolutely, and I like the point you're making, because even though we do have good organizations like the credit bureau who will alert you, have agency, take action, call them, set up a meeting just to find out if everything's still okay, and have that relationship with them. So in the very tragic event that you have been scammed, or your personal identity has been accessed to, or your accounts, your money has left your bank account, what can you possibly do to remedy that?
So the first course of action would obviously be, if it's a financial problem, then go to your financial institution to ask them to help. Most of them have got fraud departments available that would render assistance. Credit bureaus also have fraud departments that they would specifically help you. A great resource is South African Fraud Prevention Services. Lots of good tips, tricks that you know are available to people, resources that are available to people, and they also provide help in order to be able to resolve fraudulent situation if you have been the victim of fraud. So my recommendation is start with the financial institution if that's where the problem originated. Then go to the credit bureaus, let everyone know that you have been the victim of identity theft or fraud, and try and let that be an alert if someone makes an inquiry on your credit profile. And then, as I said, also South African Fraud Prevention Services, very good.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm no professional when it comes to fraud prevention, but I would advise to also stay calm. Because I recently got an email about an account that I haven't paid for and I need to pay today immediately because it's due. I mean, the panic me would have just said, okay, where's my bank account? I need to pay this because I don't want any bad debt. But sometimes they just keep calm. You don't have this account. So in that situation, I think they tap into your emotions, these scammers and fraudsters, because they know if you've got a clean record, you want to keep it that way. So chances are you wouldn't even think if this is legit or not. You just want to make sure you settle whatever bill and keep your clean record.
Yeah, there are so many crazy schemes and that we see out there, you know, everything from the email scheme to sucking you into providing your bank details to even to SMSs. Even SMSs could be used, you know, to try and hack in your phone. So there are so many different ways that fraudsters will go about to try and get your information. In a commercial environment, in a business-to-business environment, we often see fraudulent credit applications, and especially again this time of the year, where they try and obtain goods and services on a credit basis. And when you then go looking for the business that's bought this stuff from you on a credit basis, you find out actually it was a fictitious application.
Wow.
So lots of that stuff also going on in the market.
I appreciate you coming through and giving us this advice bright and early in November, not when we're deep in December. We're not trying to listen to anything but have a good time. So thank you, Frank. Your timing couldn't be more perfect. Of course, Frank joining us, the Debtsource CEO, Frank Knight, ensuring that you and I are more careful, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a business, just ensure that you do double check there could be a fraud looming somewhere in your organization or your personal finances. But of course, make sure that you always keep cautious.